it's red, I'm good. What's up, everybody? This is Renee Sorenson. As you all know, most of you are probably my friends on this episode. I am so stoked to be here. I'm scared, crapless, but I'm hoping it will get easier as I go on. I think also when you tell your own story, there's a lot more vulnerabilities there. I didn't want this channel to be anything about me, but I also thought how important it was for the idea to go into my own origin story before I dive into what's to come, because my first interview is going to be amazing. Hopefully this will be amazing too, and hopefully it'll be eye-opening and you'll learn some things and you'll gain some inspiration, and that is my goal here. We came back with the name The Comeback. I really liked Shift Happens. The context was a little tricky on that one. I didn't really know if that would turn people off or not, but I really kind of liked the idea of crap happens, and I also liked a shift. Like, I hope in our life we make a lot of shifts. But The Comeback kind of made sense for me because I feel like everybody goes through all of these hard things in their lives. And there's a couple ways that you can deal with it. You can either wallow in it and kind of tell that story over and over again and just keep reliving it and not have any cool, powerful changes. And then I have seen some people make some ridiculous comebacks at so many different things. I do think that one of my gifts is connecting with people. As a kid, I received an award in choir in high school one year, and my award was called the Lightning Award. You know, most people get like the cutest couple or like congeniality or whatever, but mine was the Lightning Award. And in the description on the bottom, I was like, what is this award? It was, she never strikes the same place twice. And I really kind of like took the negative context of that, of like, what does that mean? Is that like insulting? And then the other part of me was like, no, you know what? I love that about me. I love that I want to be in different places in the classroom at different times and make friends. And the other thing that kind of came to mind really was that that meme that says, teacher, it doesn't matter where you put me in the classroom, I'm going to talk to everyone. I think it's from Webster. That's like an 80s show. But anyway, so I realized how much inspiration I'd been gaining off of just connecting with others and hearing people's stories, people that I don't know, people that I do know. And I realized that I always am trying to connect people and be like, I hear someone's story and I'm like, oh, I really want to introduce you to this person because it'd be really cool to introduce you to this person. Like, they could totally connect with you in all these cool ways. And so this has been something that I have been called to for a really long time, and a lot of fears have held me back. And I just decided, forget it. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to do it. If it's terrible, it's terrible. But I want to serve. And I think that it'll also be something that'll fill my own cup and not feel like work. So here I am in all my glory. I'm going to give you a little bit. I think we all have a lot of stories of comebacks. And then there are some that are really big. How I am going to format this channel from here on out is in a very specific manner due to how I have been taught in my own journey with therapy and reading and spirituality and relationships that a lot of what happens in our childhood determines a lot of the ways that we deal with things or react or behave or shut down or whatever. So I can see that my daughter and my good friend are on here, so I'm thankful. I would love for all of you in the chat to just let me know where you're at. Maybe you could tell me where you're from or whatever. I'm grateful for the words of encouragement. But so I'm going to start there. I'm going to go through a few things of hard things that I had in my life that were extremely painful and extremely pivotal, and then I want to bring you to my comeback. So I'm going to start as where I was at when I was a kid. I had a really great childhood. I grew up in Southern California. I had an amazing community of people. I had a really great group that I went to for church that was really supportive. I felt like I had all sorts of amazing adults that were always around all the time for support and love. And just because I'm going to say a few things that were really hard for me in my childhood, I want the underlying issue to be, or the underlying understanding here is that I actually really had an amazing childhood. I was the youngest of 7 kids. Birth order definitely plays a part in your story. Statistically, 7 years in between each sibling, you fit into a firstborn, and there's some really cool things with being a firstborn. Usually your strength is leadership skills, and then middle children have a little bit of that like lost child syndrome, but usually they're peacemakers. Obviously, none of these are statistically going to be across the board, but this is based on research. And then the youngest are usually the life of the party. They're a little bit spunky and unorganized, but fun. And I would say that I identify with being the youngest for sure. Also, something to think about is when we get around our family, we actually kind of start to sink back into those birth orders. Those triggers kind of come, and it's like a natural tendency. So just something to kind of think in your back pocket. So anyways, Crystal, good to see you on here. My sister from Australia is on here. Thanks for the support, you guys. So I'm going to go into my parents here. So I'm the youngest of 7. My older brother, I think he's about 5 years older than me, maybe 4. And then we trickle up all the way to, I think my brother and I are, 12 years apart, my oldest brother. So my mom and my dad, I want to go through them individually because I think it's really important to understand how they parented and a little bit about their own lives in order to understand their parenting a little bit. Obviously, this is going to be very skewed based on my own experiences. My siblings might have completely different experiences. Of course, friends of the family are going to have different perspectives of my parents, but I want to start with my dad. My dad dealt with a lot of abuse as a kid. Several different kinds of abuse. I don't even know what a YouTube is allowed for me to say or not, but let's just say some of the worst kind of abuse that you could deal with. And he had a lot of inconsistencies in his life. He ended up getting adopted by one dad and wasn't really sure who his birth dad was. There was a lot of really weird things, but he grew up on a farm, dairy farm, hard worker, super hard worker. He worked up until the day he passed about 6 years ago. Maybe it's been a little longer than that. And he thrived. He actually loved to work. He loved to serve people. He was just a big teddy bear, but you know, within a teddy bear, there's always going to be that little bit of a rough side to where if he has to turn on the fear, it came and it was strong. My mom loved everybody. My older siblings describe, and even my good friend now, we were reminiscing the other day of my mom being everybody else's bonus mom. She was really good to be kind of just accepting and loving of others, and she really loved being a homemaker. She really loved kids. She actually talked about even wanting more kids. But there was a lot of really hard things that both of my parents went through. My mom's dad dealt with alcoholism. And then, of course, I explained a little bit about my dad. And my mom was also firstborn, so she could be pretty feisty when she wanted to turn that on too. So, and then anyway, so as a child, my dad was really into adventures. We used to call him MacGyver. He could invent anything and create anything at any given time, all the time. He would literally have a stick of bubble gum and duct cake, and he could build you a boat. I mean, just amazing, really cool, innovative. And I feel like a little bit of all of us children got a little bit of that attribute of our dad. And I find things like when I took my toilet apart the other day or changed my garbage disposal, just finding that those moments of endearment with my dad. On the flip side, my dad had a severe mental breakdown around the age of 9. And it was a really pivotal part. If you guys have not heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score, it's been a great way for me to be able to heal some things that I had no idea were affecting my behaviors and my shutdowns and my fears, of just a few small events that were in my childhood, that your body actually physically keeps score, but mentally and emotionally as well. And that's been a really big healing book for me. But so my dad really wanted us all to be brave, right? And we were always driving on roads that didn't exist. And I remember going camping with him one time, and everybody was cliff jumping, and I think it was like around 7 or 8. I'm not really exactly sure, but he decided. I was crying because I wanted to be a part of the party so bad, but I was scared to death. And I remember him throwing me in this pond, right? But there was a big stream that was down the way, and not only did I come out of that water black and blue because of how I fell in the water, but also then I started to float downstream and I almost drowned. And my dad had to rescue me, but it was really freaking scary. Anyway, and so that was a big memory that I had of like just feeling something that was feeling unsafe. That was long before his breakdown. And then I could go into details of how the breakdown happened and what happened, but leading into that later in my life, my dad started to have a lot of recollection of a lot of his childhood things. And I can remember him waking up in the night screaming. Sorry, I'm going to try not to cry. And it was really scary. And at that point, all my siblings had kind of moved out of the house. I think there was maybe 3 of us left, maybe 4. And we had a lot of people in and out of the house. Some really cool things came from that. We had some people in the community come together and help do some remodeling, and those were really fond memories. My dad was really highly respected. He was a volunteer in the Boy Scouts, and he was an umpire, and he was a go. Anyways, but I remember, this is going to be a hard story to tell, but I remember a night he came home, and my mom was worried about him, and he locked himself in his room. And my mom didn't know how to get to him, so she decided to take an axe to the door to try to break it down. Well, I was the only one home, and I had no clue what was going on. And it was really scary. And I remember feeling like super scared, but also confused, a little bit abandoned that my siblings weren't there. I have an old friend on here from my hometown that just hopped on, and her family was a big part of this healing for my parents. But anyway, my dad had to go to a mental hospital. It was really scary. And I remember feeling pretty confused by that. Anyway, those were 2 really big pivotal things I think that I've held on to with my body keeping the score. Also, my mom had 8 pregnancies, C-section. And when she was pregnant with me, she had a tubal shortly before me and wasn't supposed to have any more kids. It actually burst, and anyway, somehow she got pregnant because we have 2 fallopian tubes, right? And she, at that time, was still taking pain medication for her tubals. And I don't think I'm allowed to say what the medication was, but at that time it was a drug that was being prescribed a lot, but not very well monitored. And so from my understanding, she was taking that medication during my pregnancy and after, and also had to go into a rehab. So this is long before my dad's breakdown. But point being, I can remember pouring Coke in my own bottle. I can remember things like I just kind of fending for myself. A lot of my childhood, my mom slept a lot. My dad later told us that my mom was never actually the same after her drug addiction. And I kind of have a completely different set of stories and ideas about my parents that my older kids had. I think based on these pivotal things that happened. And the reason that I bring that up is I don't remember my mom really getting up to get me to school in the mornings ever. She slept a lot. She still was awesome. She still showed up. She was still a great cheerleader, but less and less. And then in my adolescent years, I don't really remember them attending a lot. It was after my dad's breakdown. I moved quite a few times in high school. That was really difficult, especially since all my siblings had moved out. It was shortly after my dad's breakdown. All my other siblings kind of grew up in the same place, and so that was really tricky. And my dad was trying to find his way on work, and ended up losing a job after 27 years, which was part of his breakdown, and then kind of struggled with trying to figure out his place with work. So then that leads me into my high school years. I was a little wild. I definitely was just very lost, very lonely, very scared, and made a lot of really painful decisions. When you're 15, you just kind of go with the flow and think you know everything, right? But a lot of it is usually just reaching at straws, trying to find that peace and that wholeness. So I got pregnant really young, made a lot of really terrible decisions, went to 4 different high schools in 4 different completely areas of the dynamics of all of them. One was a super wealthy one. I lived in like at the ghetto of all ghettos. The other one, I moved in this rural community, and then of course I grew up in a coastal town. So I got a lot of really cool tastes of a lot of really cool things, which I am actually very grateful for. I have kept in contact with at least 1 or 2 friends in each of those areas, and they've been big. They were big saving graces for me along the way. So fast forward, I got pregnant pretty young. I had 4 kids very close together. I married a guy who reminded me of my dad. He was a hard worker, and I had a lot of respect for my dad. My dad created a lot of really cool, fun things, like I said, with the MacGyver stuff going on. We were always having adventures, and I really admired that about who I married. On the flip side, he also had a lot of trauma in his life. And when 2 people that have trauma that has been unresolved and got married quite young, it doesn't make for a great combo. So I pulled out of that later. After we'd been married about 10 years, and we had 4 kids. He had a pretty bad accident and was in the hospital for a long time, and I had a baby, and we were both in separate hospitals at the same time. And we had a lot of things that we were working through with just coping, and I don't want to say anything respectful about him, because we were doing the best that we could do with what we had and the knowledge that we had. Lots of regrets there of things that I could have done differently, but I also am just grateful for exactly how it's turned out, because I think there's just so much beauty in being able to look back and see the good that came from it, and we could stay and we could focus on all of the bad, and I've done that many times, and there's still moments of that. But to be able to go back and go, I learned a lot, and there were some really cool things, is pretty beautiful. So after that, after my divorce, I was a little bit of a hot mess. I think everybody hits a little bit of a midlife crisis. Also, being single after you've been married so young, and you kind of have evolved into this completely different person. I ended up dating a lot. I ended up actually doing the same thing. I got pregnant after having 4 kids. At this point in my life, I was doing the majority of the parenting on my own due to their dad moving and some other things that were going on. And I ended up having a very short relationship with that, and ended up going through a lot. My daughter's name is Cambria. She is 10 now. But throughout that pregnancy, a lot of really scary things happened. I had a lot of abandonment from some family members, probably for good reason. Obviously, they didn't understand all the ins and outs, and I'm not sure that I was great at communicating at that. there's some work that needed to be done and still needs to be done within our family dynamic there. But so I did a lot of that on my own. I had a couple really good people who were my saving grace during that. But I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I didn't contemplate suicide, that I didn't contemplate abortion, as far as making some phone calls for that. I remember my washer breaking down and my kids were gone. I was probably about 5 months pregnant. I hadn't told them yet. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had contemplated giving her up for adoption. I didn't want to give her up for adoption. There was a lot of pressure based on some beliefs that I had as far as maybe religious beliefs on top of, family rules, as far as just certain things. And I didn't feel very safe in that situation for good reason, not just because of those reasons that I just listed, but I was working 3 jobs. I was stretched very thin, and I remember my washer exploding one night, and I hadn't told my kids that I was pregnant yet. But what happened was I had some men knock on the door, and at this point I'm feeling defeated. I was on the floor and I was crying, and I was kind of praying for, like, somebody just help me, give me some direction. And these 2 guys knocked on the door, and they happened to be some people in the congregation of my church, and they just asked if I needed anything, and I said, no, my dad's actually on my way. I just had some things go down, and I'm good, right? And my dad literally wasn't on his way at this point, and I kind of just shoot him off. And I remember sitting back on my floor again and going, why am I feeling like this? What am I going to do? How am I going to work? How am I going to take care of one more kid when I already have 4 kids and I already have 3 jobs, and I'm tired and I'm lonely and I'm, all the things. And I ended up sitting on my floor for probably 24 hours trying to decide if exiting this world would be better for everybody else, and better for the baby, better for me. And it was a really dark place. There was a lot of shame there. And when you live in a really high religious community, there's this unspoken kind of pressure. And I also was very well connected in the community. I taught fitness for 20 years in that community. I couldn't go anywhere without running into someone that I knew. And at this point, somehow I pulled it together. My dad came over the next day after I finally humbled myself, got it together. He helped me vacuum my whole house was flooded. And my son then asks me, I believe it was the same night when they came back from their dad, Mom, you probably need to teach some more fitness classes. You look like you're gaining some weight. Awesome, right? Awesome. This kid's what? I think he's 8 at the time, and he's telling me I'm fat, right? And at this point, I'm like, well, SH word. I guess I got to figure out what I'm going to do from here, because I'm just treading water, and I'm contemplating suicide and all the things. And I had a few people in my life. I had one friend that was highly relentless. She actually ended up helping me deliver the baby. And I don't want to go into why the baby's dad wasn't in his life, but let's just say he was dealing with his own demons, and wasn't capable to be there. And frankly, it worked out exactly how it was supposed to be. And I'll get to the end of that. But thanks, April, for saying that. I'm glad I'm here too. Anyway, I told myself I wasn't going to cry. So after finally humbling myself and asking for some help, I had a family picked out, and I was ready to dive into the 4 kids that I had and give her up for adoption. Only because I barely had enough time for the ones that I already had, right? Even though that's not what I wanted to do. And then I ended up meeting with a leader in my church, and God bless him, because he uh, talked me off a cliff more than once. But and he basically just validated me and told me all of my strengths and told me that it was okay to have a child in this world without a dad, that I was a loving mom, which I did believe that I was a loving mom. I do believe that I was a loving mom. And two, if I wanted to keep that baby, to keep that baby. So that's what I did. And it wasn't easy. I ended up having to move back in with my parents. I was still trying to keep all these jobs. My parents were not necessarily in a place where that was something that, would be easy for them. They were starting to age out of life. It ended up being beautiful. My dad always called Cambria his girl. And whenever she'd walk in the room, he would light up and she would light up. And it was a beautiful thing, because they only got to spend a few years together before he left. And it wasn't easy, but it was a beautiful thing. I remember looking back and being resentful at why nobody was helping me while I was pregnant, why I was so alone. And then as I tell this story right now, I listed all these things of these people who did step in. Those guys that were at the door, I pushed them away. And it's like that parable of like, you weren't there, you weren't there. And it was like, no, Jesus was carrying you, right? It was like, so I really could have looked at that so different, but it's just funny when you're in a state of mind, like that was such a godsend. And I wasn't ready to accept help for whatever reason, but there were so many people along the way that were there. And thank you for that. I know that you know who you are. So anyway, I ended up taking a pretty big break after Camry was born. Not until I actually got married for a few months in the middle. And such a good man he was, such a good man. But we were both very, very drowning in parenting and trying to plant a few kids, and had some things in our lives that were really tricky. So I have no ill feelings towards that situation. But anyway, I ended up taking a really long break, lived with my parents, took some things that I decided that I needed to go back to counseling. I am the hugest advocate for counseling. I am the hugest advocate for looking for people in your life that are going to uplift you. And something that I wrote on my preview here about this channel that it was moving to me is that when I said no one's coming and how that identified with me, what I meant is there's always going to be somebody there. They're going to be on the other side of your phone screen. They're going to be at the grocery store. They're going to be your family members reaching out. They're going to be somebody who wants to save you. They're going to be somebody who wants to feed into all the negative feelings that you have about how terrible your life is. And they're going to just dive right into that. And it's really important to know that there's going to be people that are going to come into your life, and they're going to bring you down. And there are people that are going to come in your life, and they are going to lift you up. And sometimes it's not them coming to you. Sometimes it's you having to seek those things. And I think that's what, I think I said Jocko, which is an awesome YouTube channel. If you ever guys want to check it out, he's awesome. I think I'm a little more into that because I have a son who is seeking to go into some military forces, but he's just really eloquent and powerful in his message. But I actually think it was David Goggins who wrote "No One's Coming," And if you don't like profanities, I don't expect you to even remotely venture on a David Goggins book, but his story is pretty incredible. And all those stories have been so inspirational for me. So I feel like I'm going a little backwards, so forgive me on that. But uh, before I go into kind of my pivot of the beauty of all the heartache, right? I want to help you all understand my goal here. My goal here is to serve anybody who needs to know that there's hope. Anybody who needs to know that you can do it. You can do it. You can do whatever you put your mind to. But I just feel really called to connect those people. I have a couple people that I've set up and they've gotten married, and I feel like kind of that kind of thing is really a gift that I have. I really love people. I make friends wherever I go. I don't know if they think I'm their friend or they think I'm a little crazy, but people fascinate me, and I just feel so inspired by everybody's different journeys and how they have overcome so many things. And anyway, so after going to counseling, I've been to counseling for probably 10 or 15 years on and off, but after Cambria, it was pretty tough. So I decided to go back and try to refigure out, okay, I don't want to do that again. I've been in and out of these relationships. I'm trying to raise these kids. I don't feel strong enough to do this on my own. I know that Dr. Laura is all about never getting married again until your kids are raised. And I don't agree with that, but I have all the respect in the world for what she does. But I realized that just wasn't me. So I did a lot of praying. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of studying. Of course, I reached out to a lot of friends, and I just kind of tried to soak up having this angel child that I am so grateful. I ended up just making the decision to have her stay with us as a part of our family. And I ended up taking a leap and got on a dating app, which was very painful because I'm in the generation that was like, that's weird. No one does that. And anyways, I ended up creating a really cool friendship. And I had all these reservations of what to not do and what to do and what this person needed to look like. And it was like, they couldn't be single for this long, and they couldn't have this many kids, and they couldn't have no kids, and they couldn't have like all the dating. I was like, all the rules, right? And I realized that when you try to control everything, it blows up in your face. And so there's something to submitting. There's something to giving it to God. There's something to a big thing for me right now as my kids are starting to get married is that a lot of the times we try to find people in our lives to fill voids. And I think that's important to have because I think we have different friendships and different relationships and different things that we enjoy with different people in order to meet certain needs that we have. And I think that's beautiful. And I love that. And I love that I have friends of all walks of life in so many different places. But I realized that I was trying to have someone else complete a void when really my relationship with myself and my purpose was what I needed to do first. Because when you start trying to fill all these people's other voids, it ends up being more toxic a lot, because then you're trying to have someone actually complete you, but then when they're not there all the time, that you feel incomplete. I don't exactly know if that makes sense to any of you, but it makes perfect sense to me that that's what I needed to do. And so I had an amazing therapist. It's not easy to find a good therapist. He was wonderful. He always was giving resources. He was great at listening. He's still around, but he's starting to retire. I wish I could talk to him every single day. But I just needed to find me. So he challenged me to make a passion list, to do things that moved me and that drove me. And I found a lot of that in running. I found running to be a great place to be meditative and to get out in nature and to just get deep in prayer and thought. It was a way where I didn't have the distractions of my kids or my family or my phone. And I think that those passion lists for everybody are vastly different. Some people want to fish. Some people want to go to the gym. Some people want to cook, all those things. But for me at that time, it was something that was beautiful. And I ended up training for an Ironman around that time. Actually, rewind, that was before Cambria. And I remember actually not finishing the Ironman. I trained very hard. I was in the best shape of my life. I got some really cool aha moments with, when you're doing something for 7 hours straight, you go through all sorts of thoughts in your mind. But I found some really big healing there. And anyway, so when I met my husband now, I was talking to him about my therapy, and I gave him the big X right away. He was nothing like anybody I had ever dated, which probably should have been the big green light, right? The big green light. The other ones didn't work, but at first it was the big red flag. The timing was a little tricky. We are very different and very similar, but very different in so many ways. And I think timing is a big thing. Me being able to finally feel whole was a big thing. And when we decided that we kind of started to like each other, I realized that if this was going to go anywhere, he had to meet my therapist, which for him, that should have been a red flag. This girl wants me to meet her therapist. That's a little crazy, especially for most men. There's a lot of reservations there, I think, with men having to be rough and tough all the time. And then we have that flip side in society too, where it's probably not somewhere I should go right now. Anyways, but thank heavens. Thanks, Kevin. It's good to see you on here. Thank heavens he was willing. He was like, heck yeah, let's go to therapy. I'll meet your therapist. And I will forever be grateful for that, because I tell you what, blending kids is no joke. And we had, I believe, 4, maybe 5 in high school, same ages, opposite sexes. He kind of was doing the cheerleader thing. I was kind of doing the football thing. I wasn't necessarily very fond of the cheerleaders that were always pursuing my sons. Anyways, so I was really clunky as a stepmom. I'm still really clunky as a stepmom. It's not a natural thing for everybody. And it's not because of them, it's because of me. But anyways, went to therapy, did some really cool stuff. I love that we had that base, because throughout our marriage, we've been able to go back to this therapist and kind of revisit a few things and kind of talk about the clunkiness. And it's been really cool, because there'll be times where we'll sit in the therapy office and we're both kind of sitting there laughing, why are we here today? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, and so it's been cool to have that. But then every time we have something really important to cover when we go in there. So vastly different from the therapy I went to before, where it was like, we're done. This is hard. This is heavy. And just literally picking each other apart and pointing fingers. And I think that also comes with age, right? That comes with age. So anyway, so my big pivot was my sweet Cambria. And I think we all have these big pivots in our lives of moments of huge despair and complete hopelessness. and maybe even thinking the world would be a better place without us. And my goal here is to tell you that those are lies. In my belief, that's a power coming from a dark place, and it's a time where we should be praying and reaching out for help. And I'm just really grateful for the growth that I have had, and I am grateful for even all that crap that has happened leading up to where I am now. And I can't say I have it figured out. I would hope to say that I am more mature and that I have learned a lot, and that I'm getting better every day. And I hope that I will never be in a place where I don't want to learn and grow and be influenced by people who have been through cool things and hard things. And I just want to make sure that I'm covering everything here. But I just want to give hope. I want to give validation. I want to show you stories of triumph of people who have been so pivotal in giving me strength and inspiration. And I'm grateful that I'm alive today. And it's really funny that I'm even saying this right now, because the funny thing is similar to those moments that I had when I was feeling so down with Cambria, actually came flooding back yesterday. There are things that are still very imperfect in my life. There's still a lot of growth that needs to happen. There was a deep, deep moment of despair yesterday. I think there was a lot of fear with me feeling like getting so vulnerable and telling things that are so close to my heart. But I just had to do it all day long today. I didn't want to get on here, but I had to do it because some days we just have to fake it. And some days we have to reach for help. And even though we all have really cool comebacks, I mean, you're here. If you're here, you've had a comeback. There's no possible way that anyone who is watching this has not had something hard in their life, but some are harder than others. And I just hope that I can serve the people that I interview for greater healing. I hope that each experience that is going to be so vastly different. I'm so excited for all of it, from people who've dealt with drug addiction to deceit to I have a good friend that I've made in recent years that was accused of something with the Jan 6 stuff, and that was rough, and it almost tore him to complete defeat when he was standing for truth, his truth. But my hope is that I can just leave you with these stories of excellence and bravery and vulnerability. I think we all want to root for the underdog. I know that I always want to root for the underdog. I always want to know that someone who is unexpected just comes out of something, and then I'm fascinated by it, and I get nosy, and I'm like, tell me how you did it. Tell me what you did. And so I hope that this podcast comes really natural for me, but I also really hope that this podcast will bring great strength for all of you and for your loved ones. And so I want to wrap it up here. I thought I would cover, I probably should look over this a little bit, but my first story is one of my biggest inspirations. I have known her from a distance for a very long time. I just kind of want to give you a preview because this channel was never really meant to be about me. But I wanted to just explain the importance of why this podcast is important, and it's not because of my story, it's because of your stories. And there was a time where I ran into this friend where I actually didn't think she was going to make it. She had gone through some really hard trials and really deep into addiction. And somehow she's bounced back. And I don't know all the details to the story. I just know that I have gained a ton of inspiration. I'm not going to give the story away because it has a lot of layers. And she's really excited to share. I actually reached out to her a year ago and I'm like, you have to tell your story. You have to tell your story. Because I've lost a few friends with drug addiction and I still have people close to me that are dealing with drug addiction. Anyways, so she's one of my biggest inspirations, and I hope that I can do it justice with her story. I imagine that it might take a little longer, but I hope that you guys can all turn in and support and share and like and do all the weird things that people ask you to do on YouTube in order to get whatever going so that we can spread hope and light and love. And I just encourage you all to give yourself grace when you're feeling down, and don't sit with those stories of the hard things that you did wrong, that were painful. Pull from those stories what you learned and the growth that you've gained and the beauty of just learning and evolving. I hope that I die with knowing that every single day I have something to learn and something to pull that is beautiful and positive, because there have been times in my life where I've done the very opposite, and it's a really easy place to go. But surround yourself with greatness. If you're looking for a couple good books, another good book that really was pivotal for me in my transition was, I wrote it down, The Body Keeps a Score, and then another one was The Mastery of Love, because that book talks a lot about what I was saying about being whole first. Being whole first, and then you can bless others. Then you can have healthy relationships. And so if that means therapy, if that means friendships, if that means book clubs, if that means church, if that means community, I just encourage you all to find what works for you. Meditation, all of the things, exercise. Anyway, I'm super excited for next week. I'm going to do this every Wednesday night. I would love to have you all join. I know lives are busy, so of course the cool thing about the YouTube platform is you can play it anytime you want. If you have ideas for future things, I am wide open. This is just a big leap of faith. I fully expect most of my episodes to go similar to this format, probably a little less clunky when it's not your own story. But I just have such a deep love for people. I'm so excited to be able to do that in this format. I would be lying if I was saying it wasn't to fill my own bucket. I think we all need to have a sense of meaning and purpose. And I know that when I feel really connected to people, and also as myself feeling really understood, that I gain an energy and a sense of complete love and like all-consuming, just meaningful and purpose. And so that is why I decided to take the leap here tonight. And I'm thankful for the support here in the chat. I would love to know, before I just kick you all off, if there is anybody who has any questions for me really fast, shoot them in the chat. I plan on doing that with my guests in the future. I think that that is a beautiful way for us to be able to interact with each other. I also think that whatever the overcoming story is, the comeback, that it will speak directly to whoever the individuals are. And so I want to create that opportunity for if people are are looking for help or answers, to keep this chat always wide open, which is why I felt it was really important to do a live, even though it was really scary. And I'm grateful for all of your stuff in the chat and encouragements. Tori, I have committed to, I don't know how many weeks are in a year. I've committed to 56 episodes, so once a week. I hope that I have enough content for once a week. I do have a pretty good list, but I hope that list continues to grow if people do find value. I'm going to just go live every Wednesday night. I don't really care if you guys are on live or not. I think it's more fun this way. But of course, it'll just be on YouTube. Anyways, I love you too, Tori. Sorry, I forget I'm wearing a mic. I love all of you. I am thankful for the words of encouragement. I am thankful for the opportunity. And I just want to pray for blessings over all of you. And it looks like you guys don't have any other questions. So that being said, I cheers to new beginnings. Cheers to whatever has scared the heck out of you, whether it's, learning to swim or cooking something new, but just to jump in and do it. And even though my dad did those things that left a lot of unsafety in my life, it also created a huge sense of bravery. And I will be forever grateful for those encouragements. And whatever's holding you back, just get it out of your mind. And I hope you all have an awesome Wednesday. I hope that you found some value here. And I hope you have an awesome night. So hopefully we'll see you all next week. And I love you all. Good night.